Hi, here I am celebrating my 100th YouTube video with all of you. And what better way to celebrate my 100th YouTube video than wearing customized rainbow tee gifted by the love of my life, gifted by Pooja. So Pooja has gifted this wonderful rainbow t-shirt which I have worn to celebrate with all of you my 100th YouTube video. Yes, I'm marking my century. Yeah, I'm marking my century with my new gift of rainbow tea. And in this century YouTube video, I'll be talking about something that I have been requested yesterday in the comments section of my previous video. Sir, can you talk a little bit about the relationship between toxic masculinity and hegemonic masculinity? Yes, I can talk about that. I will talk about that in this video. But before I talk about that, I promise you I will be talking about something else as well. In fact, I'm planning to talk about two more versions of masculinity. As Cornell has said that masculinities. So if there are masculinities, then these are some of the examples of some of the masculinities that we have, like toxic masculinity, like hegemonic masculinity, like complicit masculinity, like say subordinate masculinity. And two more masculinities I am planning to talk about today is metrosexual masculinity or metrosexuality, as it were. And one more thing that I'm planning to talk about is spornosexuality. Okay, spornosexuality, spornosexuality, spornosexuality. But I would begin this video with the request. What's the relationship between toxic masculinity and hegemonic masculinity? Now, hegemonic masculinity is something very simple, that those people who sweat it out in gym, the hunks, they are the hegemonic male. Now, the complicit masculinity is that masculinity which is not a gym goer themselves, who are not gym goer themselves, but what they do, they prescribe hegemonic masculinity. They are the policemen of hegemonic masculinity. So this is complicit masculinity. So complicit men are not hegemonic themselves, but they prescribe hegemonic masculinity though. So therefore, complicit masculinity is a prescription of patriarchy. Complicit masculinity is the custodian, is the policeman of heteropatriarchy. Now, this is where the lecture becomes very, very interesting. Why? Because a new term that is doing the round these days becomes relevant in this discussion of complicit masculinity. What is the term? The term is toxic masculinity. So what is toxic masculinity? Toxic masculinity is a masculinity that is being made very popular in films, in dance, in medias, and everywhere. But if there is toxic masculinity, excuse me, if there is toxic masculinity, then there has to be non-toxic masculinity also. if there is toxic masculinity, then there has to be toxic femininity as well. Hmm? Suppose if you are a gentle, soft spoken, non violent, non aggressive man, then you would be called non toxic masculine man. Hmm? Right? But even if you become non toxic masculine man, you are still man because you have penis. Now, this assumption is patriarchal. Nothing is more patriarchal than this assumption of the presence of penis between the legs and the identity of manhood. So even if you are gentle, soft spoken, non violent, pink wearing, non toxic man, still you are a man, be it toxic or non toxic. Because I find the term toxic masculinity extremely tautological because masculinity itself is toxic. Femininity itself is toxic. Gender itself is toxic. So, be it toxic or non toxic, it's going to be toxic because it is dealing with gender. So, any kind of gendering is toxic. So, therefore, what I'm trying to make you understand is that even if you are considered a non-toxic man, still you are considered a man on the assumption that you have a penis. So nothing is more patriarchal than this assumption. So a body which has penis is man, be it toxic man or be it non-toxic man. So even if, so the question is that, sir, is toxic masculinity hegemonic masculinity? Yes, toxic masculinity is hegemonic masculinity. But even, so is the toxic masculinity patriarchal? Hands down, it is symptomatically patriarchal. But even the non-toxic masculinity is patriarchal. It may not be symptomatically patriarchal, but it is asymptomatically patriarchal. But even the non-toxic men are also patriarchal because it is based on the assumption of your identity as a man in the presence of penis between the two legs. How can you assume just because you have facial hair, just because you have penis, you are man? How can you assume that just because you have breasts, you have vagina, you are a woman? You can be a man without a penis, and you can be a woman without a vagina. You can be a man with vagina, you can be a woman with penis. So penis or vagina don't make either a man or a woman, be it toxic or be it non-toxic. So this is the answer that I had to give to the commenter of my previous YouTube upload. Now, I promised you I'd be talking about couple of more versions of masculinities. So yes, I will keep my promise. I will talk about two more versions of masculinities that are becoming increasingly sporadically popular across popular registers. And those two masculinities are metrosexual masculinity and spornosexuality. Spornosexual masculinity. Now, what is metrosexuality? Metrosexuality is a kind of masculinity that is being made popular by TV, by popular culture, by OTT platforms, by MTVs, by YouTube videos, by any medium that is part of pop culture. So there are men who do their nail varnishes, there are men who take care of their skin, there are men who take care of their hair, there are men who take care of their body, there are men who take care of their look, and they basically live in metro cities. They are urban young men, they are extremely good looking, but the problem with that good look is that that good look is dependent on the good look of Hrithik Roshan. And who is Hrithik Roshan? Hrithik Roshan is not a human being. Hrithik Roshan is an image which is given to you by popular culture. Remember Jean Baudrillard's simulation? So TV simulates the image of Hrithik to you, and then so to say to you that this is the model that you have to fit in. So you have to look like Hrithik. You have to do your hair like Hrithik. You have to walk like Hrithik. You have to look like this and you look like that. So TV gives us these wonderful Hrithik Roshans and these Ranveer Singhs, Ranveer Kapoors and others. And then it puts pressure on us to fit into that image. If we fit into that image, then we become metrosexual. So therefore, metrosexuality is a kind of urban metro young men sexuality which is predicated on the image that TV tells you. And what does TV tell you? TV basically tells you how ugly you are. TV basically tells you how ugly you are. And then TV gives you the cosmetic products to remove your ugliness. And then they sell you those products. So they first give you the image of Hrithik Roshan, and then they tell you how ugly you are. Then they give you the solution of your ugliness, and then you buy those solutions to solve your problem, that is ugliness, and then you start looking like Hrithik Roshan. Then you start dancing like that. Then you start behaving like a Dushmanto on Harley Davidson around Saraswati Puja Pandal. So therefore, what capitalism is doing, capitalism is creating this bizarre situation of metrosexuality in which many cosmetic products could get sold not only to women but also to men who are falling prey to metrosexuality. So this is metrosexuality. So therefore metrosexuality plays right into the hands of right-wing media and bourgeois capitalism. Right. Now the last version of sexuality that I wish to talk about tonight is is spornosexuality. Now this is really interesting. Spornosexuality, as I have already explained, the spelling of spornosexuality is a portmanteau word of porn and sport. So therefore, if I conflate and create a portmanteau word like chilled and relax, chillax, portmanteau word like sex and text, sexting, that is sending illicit message of sexuality to others. So he is not texting me, he is sexting me. I feel so chillax today, my examination being over. So like you are fantastic and you are fabulous, so therefore your teaching is so fantabulous. So the words like sexting, fantabulous, chillax, smexy, that is you are smart and sexy, so you are smexy. So smexy, fantabulous, chillax, sexting. Similarly, we have a portmanteau word like porn from pornography and sport. And if we conflate the collapse and conflate to create a portmanteau word of porn and sport, then it would be like sporn. So SPORN. So SPORN is a portmanteau word of porn from pornography and uh, and and sport. Uh, it could be cricket, it could be football, it could be rugby, anything else. But primarily the outdoor masculine sports. And if we conflate and collapse porn into sports and sports into porn, then we have a word like spornosexuality. Okay, spornosexuality. So porn. So let's create a portmanteau word with porn and sport, and then it becomes sporn, SPORN. And then this kind of masculine sexuality is called spornosexuality. So spornosexuality is popularized by cricketers, the Virat Kohlis, the soccer players, the football superstars like Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, so they are men with tattoos all over their bodies. They have tattoo on their neck, they have tattoo in their hands, and they promote a kind of sexuality through sports. They promote a kind of masculinity through sports. Similarly, we have adult industry actors and actresses who also sports tattoo all over their body. The people who work in Naughty America, the people who work in Brazzers, the people who work in many Canadian, North American adult industry. So they sport a masculinity, a masculine sexuality that is very similar to the kind of sexuality, masculinity that is sported by Virat Kohlis and the Lionel Messis and the Cristiano Ronaldos. So their gym culture, their tattoos, their girlfriends by their side, their machismo. So these macho adult movie stars, so these macho cricketers, so these macho soccer superstars, they are mixing pornography with sport and sport with pornography. And if we do that, if we conflate and collapse porn with sport, then we create sporn. And then it becomes that brand of sexuality through popular culture becomes spornosexuality. So Virat Kohli is a spornosexual man. Lionel Messi is a spornosexual man. Johnny Sins is a spornosexual man. Therefore, Kieran Lee is a spornosexual man. Therefore, Cristiano Ronaldo is a spornosexual man. So therefore, that is spornosexuality, something that is very much hand in gloves with, again, capitalism, bourgeois capitalism, and pop culture. So therefore, postmodernism deals a lot with these dynamics of 21st century sexuality and masculinity. So we have discussed toxic masculinity and why toxic masculinity is tautological, why masculinity itself is toxic, why toxic men or toxic non-toxic men both are equally toxic, because both are called men. Even the non-toxic men, the soft pink wearing non-violent men, they are also called men because they have penis, which is extremely asymptomatically patriarchal in the sense of being transphobic, right? Right, in the sense of being transphobic. So therefore, the transphobia is absolutely implicated in toxic masculinity. And is it hegemonic? Obviously. But then it's very easy. It is symptomatically patriarchal. But when I say even the non-toxic men are also part of patriarchy, then that becomes asymptomatic patriarchy. A patriarchy that is much like asymptomatic COVID patient, is not easy to identify. You won't see people suffering from uh, ventilation crisis, but they still carry virus of COVID in them. Similarly, those people who are asymptomatically patriarchal, like non-toxic men, like complicit men, they also carry the virus of patriarchy in them, but they are not symptomatic, because you won't be able to identify whether they are COVID patient or not. So complicit masculinity becomes very, very dangerous asymptomatic patriarchy, which also creates another version of asymptomatic patriarchy, that is non-toxic masculinity. And so far as toxic masculinity is concerned, it is easy because it is symptomatically patriarchal. And there are other two things that I have already explained, that is metrosexuality. Yes, something that popular culture and capitalism are pretty much hand in glove with. And then we have the final and the third category of this YouTube video, that is spornosexuality, which is a combination of portmanteau word of porn and sport, that is porn, that is spornosexuality, something that is popularized by people who work in adult industry like brazzers, and people who are famous, tattooed, tanned, gym goer, fitness freak Virat Kohli's, Messi's, and Cristiano Ronaldo's. And on this note, with the discussion of toxic masculinity, non-toxic masculinity, spornosexuality, and metrosexuality, I would like to take a leave for the time being, and hope you have enjoyed the lecture. But as I have said, stay negative, don't be positive, not at least till this pandemic is over. And be very, very careful, be very, very careful, not only of the people who are symptomatic, but also those COVID victims, those patriarchy victims who carry the virus of COVID, who carry the virus of patriarchy in them, but they are very difficult to identify. So those are asymptomatic patriarchal people. Be more wary, not only about symptomatic patriarchy, but also about asymptomatic patriarchy, because some of the transphobic feminists like TARPs and many of the secondary feminists, unfortunately, are asymptomatically patriarchal. See you very soon, and remember, never become positive, stay negative.